Hi and welcome to this week's chemistry lesson for Year 8 Chemists. This is your help video to give you a little bit of guidance as to how to complete this task. Now, you've been working really hard on learning about gas tests and also doing balancing of chemical equations. In this lesson, you will have 2 activities to do. Number 1, you'll be able to revise and go through balancing chemical equation exercises at your own pace. The balancing of the chemical equations has been a little bit tricky for quite a few of you. Some of you know how to do it very quickly, and others are taking their time over it because they don't want to make mistakes and they're unsure. The good news is that in today's lesson, you will be able to have extra practice with this to your heart's content before you begin your mini assessment for the tri-weekly topic 10. So I'm just going to go through what your instructions are and also give you a little bit of advice on the way as to how to go about it. And the first activity that I'd like you to do is I'd like you to make sure that you visit and revise some of the essential parts of the specification that we have covered. Just make sure that you don't make any mistakes on things like chemical symbols. And this was actually also a useful page for you to visit because this is one of the earlier topics that is visited in the GCSE. We do actually go back to talking about atoms, elements, and compounds to make sure that no one makes any mistakes. So this is actually one of the earliest lessons in GCSE. So even if you find that elements and symbols are very easy and straightforward, this is how it is covered at GCSE. So you should all be able to feel a little bit stretched, and it goes through what chemical symbols are, about the fact that all substances are made from tiny particles called atoms. Now, if you do forget what any of these terms are in bold, the great thing is that all you need to do is just click on the glossary term and it will come up with the smallest part of an element that can exist. It's called an atom. You can do the same for element and you could revise those terms as well. And you'll need to know what those 2 terms mean, especially when it starts talking about atoms everywhere else. Okay, so the most important thing to note is that chemical symbols always consist of 1 or 2 letters, and some of them which are unnamed and have not been assigned named are 3 letters. That's absolutely true. You'll find them on the periodic table. But pretty much by now, every single element has now been decided in terms of names, and they do consist of 1 or 2 letters. They always start with a capital letter with any other letter for that particular element in lowercase. For example, the symbol O, there's another example, the symbol NA. Please make sure that you don't write it as N, capital A, or small n, small a, or small n, big A. We need to make sure that you know how to write the element symbols, because when we do your tri-weekly assessment, we need to make sure that there are no mistakes at all. Okay, just a quick reminder, this is actually one of the earliest lessons that we did way back in September, October. And I introduced to you the periodic table for the first time. You can actually see that beautiful dividing line where you have the metals on the left-hand side, which are in red, and the non-metals, which are on the right-hand side in yellow. Notice that hydrogen is in the middle. I like this version of the periodic table because it actually has hydrogen as a non-metal floating around in the middle, and that's the most accurate way, I think, of portraying hydrogen. So that's the first thing that I would like you to revise. Just go through that, make sure that you are absolutely clear on symbols. The second thing that you need to do is need to make sure that you're happy with writing chemical formulae. Now, formulae just means that it is more than 1, okay? In the same way that we use the letter S at the end of symbols. So chemists, we use symbols and formulas to represent elements and compounds, and we will need this because we want to try and make sure that we push you past word equations as quickly as possible. We want you to be able to write down balanced chemical equations in terms of compounds, elements, and their formulae. Okay, so balanced chemical equations, to remind you, is a chemical equation written using the symbols and formulae of the reactants on the left-hand side and the products on the right-hand side. So the number of units of each element present is the same on both sides of the arrow. So here are some of the formulae for elements. It's just this chemical symbol. If you've forgotten what a particular symbol is, you can use a periodic table. So you've got your periodic tables, but a great website just to look up periodic tables as well. If you just type into Google, Royal Society of Chemistry periodic table. This is one of my all-time favorite periodic tables. It's on the Royal Society of Chemistry, which is based in London. I visited it. It's a fantastic looking place. And there's your periodic table. You can also download this periodic table as an app. It's a fantastic app, and quite a few of you have seen this app in action. And all you need to do is just click on a particular one and you can find all of the facts of that element. So you can use that just in case there's a particular element in your tri-weekly assessment that you need a quick reminder on. You can just use that periodic table. Remember, it's okay to look at the periodic table. You'll always be provided a periodic table during tests in chemistry, right all the way up to the end of your GCSEs. But it is important to use the names and chemical symbols for the first 20 elements in the periodic table. That's all the way from hydrogen down to calcium. Now, we've worked extensively on that. We've done electron configurations as well. You've got to also make sure that you know what the elements in group 1 and group 7 are. This is great because this website takes you through all of the terms that you may have also forgotten about in year 7. Molecules, what a molecule is, a collection of two or more atoms held together by chemical bonds. They could be the same, they could be different. Atoms, which is the smallest part of an element that can exist. And notice that I now start to use the word subscript. A subscript is a letter or number written below the line, which is great because if we look at the Google document that you are accessing right now, I hope, you can actually find that in the tools. You can find a little, oh, there it is, text. You can actually write numbers above and below. Now, unfortunately, you can't do this on a Google form. So I will be very forgiving with that, and I will assume when you're typing in a formula, you do know which part of the line to write that number down, okay? So if it's something like H2O, you will write H2O. I'm looking out for the capitals, but I will assume that the 2 in H2O for water is in the subscript form, okay? It's the only way in which I can test you reliably online and very quickly. Okay, so work your way through that. Now you'll also find that these are the diatomic molecules as well that I have set for you earlier in the week. So a nice mnemonic can be used to remember these elements, to remember that they have the 2's at the end. I bring clay for our new house. It's really important to remember which elements exist as molecules. You can reveal the answers after you have a go at some of these questions. You can have a go at that, test your knowledge with that. So another aspect now is chemical formula of compounds. So things are starting to get a little bit tricky now. So you can talk about compounds contain 2 or more elements chemically combined. Okay. Here's the most important thing here. These names of compounds with the formula. Don't worry too much about the factual information over here where it says carbon dioxide always has 12 grams of carbon for every 32. Don't need to worry about that at the moment. Remember, this is stretching you as much as I can. Chemical formula, that's an important part, so go through that. Okay, this is also important as well. Okay, we've already spoken about subscripts, and just some extra information there to make sure that you're comfortable with talking about what happens during chemical reactions. So the next thing that you then need to revise are word equations. So click on the link, everything is here. Remember, we're talking about arrows. We don't want to see any more equal signs, so put the arrows, plus signs, separate two or more reactants. It's all good information. So you will probably realize why it is that I don't like this particular word equation. This particular word equation on the BBC Bite-Size website should have potassium sulfate and water on the right-hand side of the arrow. Please make sure that your ones are correct. These ones are correct. These are fantastic. Okay. And you can have a go at that equation. Someone was asking me about ammonia during the help session. So during our Google Meet this week, at the time of recording, people were asking me about ammonia on the chat. There it is. So nitrogen and hydrogen react together to form ammonia. Give the word equation for that. And you can give ammonia as the name of that product. And the next one is a nice step-by-step guide as to how to balance an equation. Now you must make sure that you go through this very, very carefully. Very carefully. So here is the most important series of steps to understand. And this was for nitrogen and hydrogen reacting to form ammonia. But please make sure that you go through these steps and make sure that you understand piece by piece how you get from an unbalanced equation to a balanced equation. Okay? Please make sure that you know how to do that. And by the way, nitrogen is a gas and hydrogen is a gas at room temperature. So is ammonia. Ammonia is a gas at room temperature, and that is the reason why you have those G's that are placed at the end. And certain questions at GCSE start to ask you about putting state symbols. But at this stage, I'm more concerned about whether you can actually balance the chemical equation rather than give the state symbols for common chemicals. And that's the reason why I'm putting the emphasis on balancing the equations in your tri-weekly assessment. Now, there are some of you that will be able to go on to tackle using brackets in chemical formulae. So for those people who have target grades of A star and an A, I would like you to go through this information as well. The skills are the same as in the previous page, but you have to treat things like ammonium as one particle when it comes to balancing equations. Okay? Now, all of that is going to take you time to read through, and this is only for the extension students. So the next activity is task 2. Now what I've got for you is a sheet, and that sheet allows you to have lots and lots of practice. Lots of practice. So what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to, in your own time, and remember this is not the tri-weekly assessment, this sheet. This is just a sheet with lots of practice questions, okay? Go through them, and once you get to the questions that are here for question 8, question 10 and 11, you'll find that they get more and more tougher. And the reason why they get tougher is because these are the questions that I would expect those people who tackle the extension activity in this link to be able to do. Now, if you are doing the extension activity, the last question has a mistake. The last question does have a mistake with the formula of ammonia on the right-hand side, but I've decided to keep it in the sheet as the balancing of the equation still works. If it said something like HN3, I would have asked you to have completely ignored that question. But the question I have just placed into the document that you're looking at, and I've also said the question should read this, and the answer should read that.